Think about the single biggest, most spectacular mess you've ever made in your life. Maybe you blew a massive opportunity, completely destroyed a relationship, or made a decision so incredibly bad that you looked around the room for hidden cameras. Got it in your head? Good. Now take a deep breath. Let me ask you a question. And this question just might change the way that you look at the rest of your life. What if that exact moment where you failed wasn't the end of your story? What if it was the absolute best thing that ever happened to your brain? Welcome to the Due to Expire podcast. Today we are talking about the universal human faceplant. We're diving into the heavy behavioral science of why it hurts so bad to drop the ball, the psychological traps that keep us stuck in the mud, and the exact proven strategy to turn your worst setback into a launch pad. Because let's face it, we all come with an expiration date, and we don't have time to play it safe. So grab your coffee, drop your defenses, and let's learn how to master the art of bouncing back after what appears to be an epic failure and embrace failing forward. I'm your host, Corey Kennard. Now, let's grow. As we do with every episode, before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is presented by the No Negative Energy Life brand, a life coaching resource and media edutainment outlet that seeks to help human beings to consciously expose and diminish the impact of negative thoughts and ultimately replace them with positive ways of thinking that will increase one's ability to thrive. Check us out at nonegative.energy. That's no negative, all one phrase, .energy. The first thing that I want to tackle today is the universal human faceplant. I want to start with a quick exercise. Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake, or if you've completely blown a presentation or made a decision so spectacularly bad that you looked around for the hidden cameras, as I said in the opening. If your hand isn't up, you are either lying, you're a robot, or you haven't left the house since 2008. You see, failure is our most universal human experience. Yet we treat it like a contagious disease. We hide it, we rename it, we call it growth opportunities or pivots, and we pretend like it didn't happen. But today, as a human behavioral enthusiast, I want to tell you something that could be very liberating for you. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the actual engine of it. Now, please note that with this, there is what is called the biology of blundering. You ever wonder why failing feels like physical pain? Because to your brain, it is. Behavioral research shows that when we make a mistake, our anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's "oh crap" alarm system, fires instantly. It triggers the same neurological pathway as stubbing your toe. So you actually feel it. And then from an evolutionary standpoint, failure meant getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Today, failure means replying all to a company-wide email with a spicy comment talking about your boss. The tiger is gone, but the panic remains the same. So why do we fail to learn? And what are the psychological traps? Before we talk about how to rebound from a failure, we have to look at why we get stuck in the mud in the first place. When we fail, our ego immediately goes into what I call the witness protection program. We fall into 3 classic behavioral traps. The first trap is the sour grapes or ostrich effect. When a project fails, our first instinct is to bury our heads in the sand. A famous study published in Psychological Science looked at the failing to learn from failure phenomenon. Researchers found that people often tune out when given negative feedback because it threatens their self-esteem. As a result, they actually learn less from a failure than they do from a success. It's like stepping on a scale, seeing a number that you don't like, and deciding this scale is broken. Or, wait a minute, the floor is uneven and gravity is just heavier on Tuesdays. The second trap is this: the blame game. When I fail, it's because of external circumstances. It's because of the weather, or the traffic, or the economy. But when you fail another person outside of yourself and you're pointing at them, it's because of a fundamental flaw in their character. If I drop a cup of coffee, it's because the floor was slick. But if you drop a cup of coffee, you are so clumsy and you need to go to see maybe a neurologist or something. Get that checked out. The third trap is what we call the doom loop. Instead of analyzing the mistake, we replay it like a bad horror movie in our minds at 3 a.m. every day. Rumination paralyzes us. It turns a temporary event, that maybe I failed this test, into an identity trip. I'm a failure because I failed the test. Now let's look at what we call the science of the rebound and how we actually learn as humans. So how do we break this doom loop? How do we get out of this cycle? What separates people who collapse under failure from those who use it as a launching pad? Well, it comes down to deliberate, scientifically proven behavioral shifts. One shift is the power of error climate, cognitive reframing. How we talk about failure dictates the recovery. In research, Dr. Carol DeWick's foundational research on growth mindset shows that individuals who believe abilities can be developed view failure as data. It's information and not a verdict. Furthermore, neurological research using EEG tracking shows that individuals with a growth mindset show a massive spike in brain activity immediately after making an error. Their brains are actively processing the mistake to fix it. People with a fixed mindset, their brains literally shut down to protect their feelings. Another shift is the failure file method. We need to treat our missteps like scientists treat failed lab experiments. We do this by distancing the ego and isolating the variable. When it comes down to distancing the ego, we need to ask ourselves, if my best friend made this mistake, what advice would I give them? You see, as humans, we are remarkably smarter when advising others than when panicking over ourselves. And then there's isolating the variable. Don't throw out the whole project. Find the one specific pivot point that failed and keep the rest. We'll talk a little bit more about that process in a second. But the final shift that I want to share with you is this: psychological safety and the post-mortem. In organizations, bouncing back requires a culture where you won't be executed for making a mistake. Google's famous Project Aristotle spent years studying what made their best teams successful. The number one variable wasn't IQ, it wasn't experience, or it wasn't funding. It was psychological safety. The belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up, asking questions, or even making a mistake. This is the type of environment where humans can thrive. And then finally, there is the anatomy of a masterful comeback. How do we practically construct a rebound? It follows a 3-step behavioral sequence: acknowledge, analyze, and then act. This is the piece that I want to share with you that coincides with isolating the variable. You see, the first is to acknowledge. Own the mistake without self-flagellation or putting yourself down. Own it. Acknowledge it for what it is. And then you take that acknowledgement and you look at that mistake, that failure, and you analyze it. Extract the data. Why did I fail? What broke? What did I miss? And then act on it. Change the one variable that you have now analyzed and isolated. Change that one variable, that thing that caused the failure, and launch again immediately and see how things work out. Did you know that failures actually make you look more human? They can actually cause a better connection with other humans. This is known in psychology as the pratfall effect. Research shows that highly competent people who make a minor mistake or experience a visible blunder are perceived as more likable and relatable than those who appear flawless. Perfections breeds intimidation. Resilience in the face of a failure, that actually breeds connection with other human beings. You see, resilience is a muscle and not a trait. Nobody is born with a resilient or a rebound gene. Every time you fail, experience the discomfort, extract the lesson, and try again, because you are thickening the sheath around the neural pathways of resilience in your brain. You are training your brain to realize, I survived that, I can surely survive this. As I close out this episode, I want to say that we spend so much of our lives playing defense. We don't take the shot because we are terrified of the miss. We don't launch the project, we don't pitch the idea, or we don't have the tough conversation because we want to protect ourselves from the discomfort of a potential setback. My friends, please remember this. Every great strategy, every breakthrough, every medical discovery, and every resilient life is just a series of well-documented failures that someone refused to quit on. The next time you fail, and you will, perhaps even before you get out of the car today, perhaps immediately after listening to this podcast, I want you to take a deep breath. Recognize the sting for what it is. It's just your brain processing new data. And then smile at the absurdity of being human. File the error, adjust your grip, and get back in the game. It's just the time to fail forward. Thank you for listening to me today. I'm your host, Corey Kennard.